Alright, so I'm getting this engine here ready to put back in the Toyota, or I should say get to put it in the Toyota. It hasn't been in there yet. And I figured it'd be a good time to go over coolant hose routing. I've seen a lot of guys asking questions on what to do with these coolant lines, and Volkswagen makes it super confusing. They've got stuff going all over the place, so there's a lot you can simplify for the swap, and there's a lot you can do kind of how you want as far as using a coolant bulb like the VW did or not. So I just wanted to kind of go over both scenarios and show you what I do. But I think probably the biggest thing is this steam port coming out of the head. And a lot of guys are like, what is that for and what's going on? And it really comes down to an overhead cam issue. Usually your engine is going to have your hot side upper radiator hose come out somewhere on the top of the head. I know a lot of manufacturers do it differently, but VW did not leave room for the radiator hose to come out of the top. It comes out of the bottom of the head. That leaves room for any hot air anytime. I mean, especially when you're bleeding it, but even just moving through the system, air bubbles come up and they are naturally going to rise to the top of the head. And with this system, there is no escape to the upper hose. So this is designed to go to the upper hose. Now, how you get it there really depends on which way you go with the upper hose. Obviously, I've got it going the factory way out the side, and then I've got this super long hose going all the way to the all the way over, and then I tied that line in right there. Once it's down against the engine, it sits about level. Anyway, that way bubbles can travel through that little hose and get up to the air pocket on the in the radiator when you don't have a coolant bulb. If you flip this over, a lot of guys do to simplify it, and it would make this way easier, get rid of a ton of that hose. You can go out the side over the top of the exhaust and straight up to usually where your upper radiator hose goes into a lot of these swap vehicles. If you do that basically anywhere along this line, you can tie it in. Now, when you're using the radiator, I've heard guys ask a lot of times, why can't I just go to the overfill tank? So if we go over to the Toyota, so on your standard radiator with the radiator cap, your overfill is actually not part of your cooling system at all. Until the cap overpressurizes or is cooling down, this hose is sealed off from your cooling system, as well as it's vented to atmosphere. So to keep a sealed system for that steam vent line, it cannot be over here. You're outside of your cooling system. So hopefully that's easy enough to show people and make it clear that that's just not an option. So then back on the engine, if you do decide to do a coolant bulb like this guy, the factory output is under here, right under the injection pump, to the bottom of this bulb, and then pretty simply your steam vent line can go to the top side, and that would put that in line off to the side on the engine bay. That is pretty much all you do if you want to add that in and have both. You'd have two caps that way, which the lesser of the two caps would blow off first, but it would do the same thing if you feel the need to have the coolant bulb in there. So the way I do it though is to delete that, and so obviously this steam line goes to your upper hose goes there to your radiator. Which way you want to go with it is however you want. And then your lower one, it's kind of weird that it comes out right here, and it's also weird that it has the thermostat in the lower hose, but that goes down to your lower side, and that's pretty much all there is to it. on this. So this is your return line for all your accessories connected to it. On here I've got it cut off and blocked at the end of the oil cooler. But basically with it cut off and blocked, it gives you two ports, one here and one here. You can use this for the oil cooler, and you can use this for your heater core. Pretty simple that way. You just, depending on how you do it, you can actually put this out on the end of it. So maybe cut it back here and then weld a tab on to bolt it into this hole, and just plug your heater core or the oil cooler into the end of it if you don't want to have to deal with capping off this end or welding it or anything. If you have room, like with the TD Conversions coolant line, you can run it all the way over here, and then you pretty much need to cap, because you really only need two ports. If you're not going to have the coolant bulb, that is really all you need to do. And then as far as this guy goes, depending on which way you do it, you've got your heater core out and your oil cooler out. So I was just going to show you guys how I do a block heater, because these don't have a frost plug on them. I use this guy, or let's see if we got a plastic one here. Your plastic one, depending on which way you would put it in, it also has two ports. I had to make this port. If you flip it over, one of them's pointing up. Either way, I'm going to flip over the metal one on the Dakota. This one was pretty much already set up like this, and it actually works well for my heater core idea. So, my block heater idea. So it's kind of up to you which way you go with that. But I have come up with this block heater that is off of it's just a 1-inch block heater, pretty small. I think it's like 500 or 600 watts. And let me see if I can get this off here. I had to come up with this guy though. It is, I don't know, my local hardware store has one of these, just basically it's a smooth 3/4 inch pipe fitting, and then this goes from 3/4 to 3/4 inch bulb. These are just cheaper fittings that I found to make it work without costing a whole bunch with brass fittings. So anyway, that plugs in to each side of there. It plugs perfectly into a 1-inch pipe, which again, when I say save everything off the car, all this stuff is just parts that I pulled off of the car and cut to make fit here. But then this will tuck in right there, goes right into the bottom, and then it plugs right into there. Now interestingly, you're actually going backwards of what the system would go, but basically there's a straight line through the head from this over to where it comes out and the water pump is, so it's pushing water this way. Then this pipe down here is your return going in. So when the engine's running, it's pumping the hot water down and then cold water return. But when you actually plug this guy in, when it's not plugged in, it's going to reverse that. But there's no block offs or bypasses, so it really doesn't matter. It's going to heat the water up, naturally flow to the top of the head, and pull the cool water from the return line backwards. And I've tested it on 2 of them now, and it pretty much keeps at least it keeps the head. This sensor reads 100 degrees when I turn the key on. It's been about -10 with a wind chill, and it's been like 95 degrees to start it up, so it works pretty slick. The only downside is you've got to have some room here for this to sit on top of your transmission without hitting the firewall. So it only works if you're going to do that way. But that pretty much wraps it up though. Like I say, you've got, for this system, you'd use this port, or if I was using this guy, it would be this port up here will be your heater core, and then heater core return back over here. And that's pretty much it. So these systems, when I don't use the coolant bulb expansion tank, the idea is expansion. Usually your radiator is completely full. I think, at least it's worked for me, leaving the radiator about, just over the fins, so maybe an inch or inch and a half low, that kind of gives you that expansion room that the bulb was trying to do without needing to have it. And so far that has worked well for my swaps, and that's what I do. That's about the most simple way you can do the cooling system on these VWs. This pretty well works for any of them. I believe even the common rails have the same steam port and most of the same outputs. They didn't really try to reinvent the wheel the whole time they were making these things, so this should work for anybody, and hopefully that alleviates some confusion and kind of shows you what's going on for it. Any other videos you guys want to see, just let me know. I'm more than happy to get the information out there and get you a visual picture of what's going on. But again, there's a lot of ways you could route hoses. If you want specifics, I could try to do one on each of the vehicles, but those are the important things to go over. So anyway, hopefully that helps you guys out. Thanks for watching.